He walked into a trap. On purpose. Part 1, The Draconis and the Code of Razorclaw. The Draconis were a species forged in the crucible of a binary star system. Their home world, Xylos, baked and froze in equal measure as the two suns danced around each other, creating a landscape of extremes. This environment had shaped them, ruthless, resilient, and undeniably powerful. Their dragon-like appearance wasn't just a coincidence of evolution, it was a reflection of their fiery internal spirit and their territorial instincts. Most Draconis craved dominion, sought to expand their influence, and viewed other species as either resources to be exploited or obstacles to be crushed. Captain Razorclaw, however, was a deliberate deviation from this norm. He possessed the imposing physique and inherent combat prowess of his kind, but his heart beat to a different rhythm. He saw the galaxy not as a chessboard for conquest, but as a garden that needed tending. The unchecked greed of corporations, the arrogance of wealthy civilizations, and the oppression of weaker species gnawed at him. He couldn't stand idly by while injustice flourished. Thus was born the Serpent's Kiss, a ship as unique as its captain. Unlike the hulking, heavily armored warships favored by most Draconis, the Serpent's Kiss was a sleek, modified frigate. It was fast, agile, and equipped with advanced cloaking technology, making it a difficult target to track. But what truly distinguished it was its crew. Razorclaw had scoured the galaxy, not for mindless muscle, but for exceptional talent. His first mate was Lyra, a Xylosian like himself, but whose family had long been ostracized for being thinkers rather than fighters. Her tactical mind was unmatched. Then there was Jax, a nimble engineer from the Cygnus Collective, whose mastery of technology bordered on the mystical. Kira, a warrior from the Amazonian planet Ethel, whose swordsmanship was legend. And finally, Zorgan, a hulking brute of a crawl who was just a big teddy bear and was their muscle. Together, they formed a crew bound not by species or allegiance to any single world, but by a shared sense of justice and a burning desire to right the wrongs of the galaxy. They operated under what Razorclaw called the Code of Razorclaw, an unwritten set of principles that emphasized fairness, compassion, and the redistribution of wealth. They targeted the opulent, the corrupt, and the powerful, diverting their ill-gotten gains to struggling colonies and oppressed populations. They were galactic Robin Hoods, feared by the elite and revered by the downtrodden. The legend of the Serpent's Kiss grew with each daring raid, each successful liberation, and each act of defiance against the status quo. Razorclaw became a symbol of hope for the marginalized and a terrifying specter for the powerful. He knew his actions had consequences, he knew he was making enemies. But he also knew that the cause was worth the risk. Part 2, The Merchant's Trap. The Consortium was a shadowy organization comprised of the galaxy's wealthiest merchant guilds, most influential corporations, and several of the most powerful, but morally bankrupt, civilizations. They controlled vast swathes of interstellar trade, dictated economic policies, and held the lives of countless beings in their gilded hands. Razorclaw's activities were more than an inconvenience, they were a direct threat to their power. At first, they dismissed him as a mere annoyance, a rogue pirate who would eventually be crushed under the weight of their collective resources. But Razorclaw proved to be more resilient, more cunning, and more popular than they anticipated. His raids became bolder, his targets more strategic, and his legend more widespread. The Consortium realized that they couldn't simply ignore him. They had to eliminate him. Gathering in the opulent palace of Lord Valerius, a representative of the Orion Trading Guild, the Consortium leaders debated their options. Military force was considered, but Razorclaw's agility and ability to evade capture made a direct confrontation too risky. Bounty hunters were hired, but they all failed, either meeting their demise or succumbing to Razorclaw's charm and joining his side. "We need a trap," Lord Valerius finally declared, his voice dripping with venom. A trap so irresistible, so perfectly crafted, that Razorclaw will walk right into it. The plan they conceived was insidious. They would fabricate a false intelligence leak, spreading rumors of an extraordinarily valuable shipment of exotic goods and cutting-edge technology traversing the treacherous, seldom-used forgotten sector. This shipment, they claimed, belonged to a minor, independent merchant family, making it a seemingly easy target for Razorclaw. To ensure success, they hired the Obsidian Guard, an elite mercenary force renowned for their ruthlessness, tactical acumen, and unwavering loyalty to the highest bidder. The Obsidian Guard were masters of ambush and space combat, and they had a reputation for never failing to complete a mission. The Forgotten Sector was the perfect killing ground. It was a region of space plagued by asteroid fields, rogue black holes, and unpredictable gravitational anomalies. Navigation was difficult, communication was unreliable, and escape was nearly impossible. The mercenaries would lay in wait, concealed by the sector's chaotic environment, ready to spring their trap the moment the Serpent's kiss entered their designated kill box. The consortium leaders smiled, confident that their plan was foolproof. Razorclaw, they believed, was too predictable. His desire to do good would be his undoing. He would see the opportunity to seize the valuable shipment and deliver it to those in need, and he would walk right into their waiting arms. Part 3, A Calculated Gambit. What the consortium didn't know was that Razorclaw had eyes and ears everywhere. He had cultivated a network of informants within the very organizations he targeted, beings who were disillusioned with the corruption and injustice they witnessed and who were willing to risk everything to help him. One such informant was a low-level data clerk named Anya, who worked in the Orion Trading Guild's Central Intelligence Department. Anya had secretly admired Razorclaw's exploits for a long time, and when she stumbled upon the details of the consortium's trap, she knew she had to warn him. Using a secure channel, Anya transmitted the data to Lyra, Razorclaw's first mate. The information was comprehensive, detailing the exact coordinates of the ambush, the identity and capabilities of the Obsidian Guard, and the precise timing of the operation. Lyra immediately brought the information to Razorclaw. Razorclaw stood on the bridge of the Serpent's Kiss, his piercing gaze fixed on the swirling nebulae outside the viewport. Lyra presented the data, her voice grave. "It's a trap, Razorclaw," she said. "A meticulously planned ambush. They know we're coming." Razorclaw listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Lyra finished, he remained silent for a moment, his mind racing through the possibilities. "The Obsidian Guard," he finally said, his voice low. "They're good. Very good." "Too good," Lyra replied. "This is suicide, Razorclaw. We need to turn back. Find another target." Razorclaw shook his head. "No, Lyra. We're going through with it." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "Are you insane? This is exactly what they want. They're waiting for us." "I know," Razorclaw said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "That's why we're going to surprise them." "Surprise them? How?" "They have us outgunned, outmanned, and outmaneuvered." "Perhaps," Razorclaw said. "But they don't know us, Lyra. They don't know what we're capable of." Razorclaw explained his plan, his voice filled with confidence. He wasn't simply walking into a trap, he was setting his own. He would use the consortium's arrogance against them, turning their carefully laid plan into a catastrophic failure. He would acquire the valuable goods they sought, dismantle a significant mercenary threat, and, most importantly, teach the consortium a humiliating and unforgettable lesson about underestimating their adversaries. "This is a huge risk, Razorclaw," Lyra said, her voice laced with concern. "If we fail." "We won't fail," Razorclaw said, his eyes burning with determination. "We have something they don't, a crew that believes in something bigger than themselves." He gathered the crew in the briefing room. Jax, Kira, and Zorgan listened intently as Razorclaw outlined the situation. He didn't sugarcoat the danger, he laid it out plainly. But he also emphasized the opportunity. This is our chance to strike a blow against the consortium, to show them that they can't control the galaxy with their greed and corruption, he said. It won't be easy, but if we work together, we can pull this off. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. They were a diverse group, but they were united by their loyalty to Razorclaw and their shared commitment to his vision. So, what's the plan, boss? Jax asked, his fingers already itching to tinker with his gadgets. Razorclaw grinned. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. Part 4, Entering the Forgotten Sector. The Serpent's Kiss entered the Forgotten Sector, its cloaking device fully engaged. The journey was treacherous. Asteroid fields loomed out of the darkness, rogue black holes threatened to tear them apart, and gravitational anomalies sent the ship lurching violently. Lyra navigated with skill and precision, her knowledge of the sector's treacherous terrain proving invaluable. Jax constantly monitored the ship's systems, making adjustments to compensate for the gravitational fluctuations. Kira and Zorgan stood ready to defend the ship from any unexpected threats. As they approached the designated kill box, Razorclaw ordered the crew to prepare for battle. He knew the Obsidian Guard were waiting, their sensors scanning the sector for any sign of movement. "All right, people, listen up," Razorclaw said, his voice calm and authoritative. "The Obsidian Guard are waiting for us. They're expecting us to be caught off guard, vulnerable. We're going to prove them wrong." He outlined the battle plan, a complex and intricate scheme that relied on precision timing, coordinated maneuvers, and a healthy dose of improvisation. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves," he said. "We're fighting for everyone who's ever been oppressed, exploited, or ignored by the consortium. Let's show them what we're made of." Part 5, The Ambush. As the Serpent's Kiss entered the kill box, the Obsidian Guard sprang their trap. Four heavily armed cruisers, cloaked and hidden behind asteroids, decloaked and opened fire, unleashing a barrage of energy weapons. The first volley struck the Serpent's Kiss, causing the ship to rock violently. Shields flickered, and alarms blared throughout the vessel. "Damage report." Razorclaw barked. "Shields at 60%. Lyra yelled. "Hull integrity compromised." The Obsidian Guard cruisers were powerful, their weapons capable of tearing through even the strongest shields. Razorclaw knew they couldn't withstand a prolonged assault. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Jax, give me everything you've got." Jax worked frantically, rerouting power and overclocking the ship's engines. The Serpent's Kiss responded, dodging and weaving through the asteroid field, narrowly avoiding being hit by the cruiser's relentless fire. Razorclaw activated the ship's countermeasure systems, launching a cloud of chaff and decoys to confuse the enemy's targeting systems. The Obsidian Guard cruisers struggled to maintain their lock, their shots becoming less accurate. "Now!" Razorclaw shouted. "Kira, Zorgan, prepare to board." Kira and Zorgan, clad in heavily armored suits, rushed to the boarding tubes. They were itching for a fight, their eyes blazing with anticipation. "Remember the plan," Razorclaw said. "Disable their engines and communication systems. Take no prisoners." The boarding tubes launched, slamming into the hull of the lead Obsidian Guard cruiser. Kira and Zorgan breached the hull and stormed inside, their weapons blazing. Part 6, Boarding Action. Chaos erupted inside the cruiser. Kira and Zorgan moved with brutal efficiency, cutting down the mercenary crew with ruthless precision. Kira's swordsmanship was unparalleled, her blade slicing through armor and flesh with ease. Zorgan's brute strength was equally devastating, his massive fists crushing bones and shattering skulls. The Obsidian Guard, caught completely off guard, fought back with desperate ferocity. But they were no match for Kira and Zorgan's coordinated assault. The mercenaries fell one by one, their bodies littering the corridors. Within minutes, Kira and Zorgan reached the engine room. They quickly disabled the cruiser's engines, rendering it immobile. Then, they moved on to the communication center, severing all communication lines. The lead cruiser was now adrift, its engines dead and its communication systems offline. Razorclaw watched as the other Obsidian Guard cruisers struggled to regroup, their formation disrupted by the loss of their leader. "Now's our chance," he said. "Lyra, prepare to launch the torpedoes. Jax, give me a firing solution." Part 7, Turning the Tide. Lyra locked onto the remaining Obsidian Guard cruisers, feeding the targeting data to Jax. Jax worked his magic, calculating the optimal firing angles and trajectories. "Firing solutions locked," he announced. "Torpedoes ready. Fire." Razorclaw commanded. The Serpent's Kiss unleashed a volley of torpedoes, each one programmed to home in on the enemy cruiser's weak spots. The torpedoes streaked through the void, dodging asteroids and evading the cruiser's defensive fire. The torpedoes struck their targets, detonating with earth-shattering force. The cruiser's shields buckled, and their hulls fractured. Explosions ripped through the vessels, sending debris flying into space. The Obsidian Guard cruisers were crippled, their weapon systems offline and their engines damaged. They were sitting ducks. Part 8, The Aftermath. Razorclaw ordered the Serpent's Kiss to move in and disable the remaining cruisers. He didn't want to destroy them completely, he wanted to capture the mercenaries and learn who had hired them. The Obsidian Guard, realizing they were outmatched, surrendered. Razorclaw ordered his crew to board the cruisers and take the mercenaries into custody. The battle was over. The Serpent's Kiss had emerged victorious, defeating the elite Obsidian Guard and turning the Consortium's trap against them. Razorclaw stood on the bridge, surveying the aftermath of the battle. The Forgotten Sector was a graveyard of shattered ships and floating debris. But amidst the wreckage, the Serpent's Kiss stood tall, a symbol of hope and defiance. "Well done, everyone," Razorclaw said, his voice filled with pride. "We showed them what we're made of." The crew cheered, their voices echoing through the ship. They had faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge, and they had overcome it through their courage, skill, and unwavering loyalty to their captain. Part 9, Interrogation and Revelation. With the mercenaries secured, Razorclaw began the process of interrogation. He knew that they wouldn't willingly reveal the identity of their employers, so he had to employ more persuasive methods. Razorclaw let Lyra and Jax take the lead in this area. Lyra was proficient in the art of psychological manipulation. She knew how to exploit the mercenaries' fears and insecurities, slowly unraveling their resolve. Jax, on the other hand, had a knack for extracting information from even the most heavily encrypted computer systems. He could bypass firewalls, crack codes, and access hidden data with ease. After hours of intense interrogation, the mercenaries finally broke. They revealed the identities of the consortium leaders who had hired them. Lord Valerius of the Orion Trading Guild, Madame Evangeline of the Cygnus Corporation, and Grand Admiral Thrax of the Kryll Empire. Razorclaw listened intently, his anger simmering beneath the surface. He knew that the consortium was corrupt, but he hadn't realized the extent of their treachery. "Thank you," he said to the mercenaries. "You have been most helpful." He ordered the mercenaries to be confined to the brig. He would decide their fate later. Part 10, The Spoils of War. With the battle won and the mercenaries captured, it was time to claim the spoils of war. The valuable shipment that the consortium had used as bait was still intact, stored aboard one of the Obsidian Guard cruisers. Razorclaw ordered his crew to transfer the shipment to the Serpent's Kiss. The cargo consisted of a variety of exotic goods and cutting-edge technology, including rare minerals, advanced weaponry, and experimental medical equipment. "This will be a great help to those in need," Razorclaw said, surveying the cargo. "We'll distribute it to the frontier colonies and oppressed populations who need it most." Part 11, Broadcasting the Truth. Before leaving the Forgotten Sector, Razorclaw decided to send a message to the galaxy. He wanted to expose the Consortium's treachery and warn others about their corrupt practices. Jax tapped into the Obsidian Guard cruiser's communication systems and override their security protocols. He broadcast a message on all frequencies, revealing the details of the Consortium's trap and the identities of those who had orchestrated it. "This is Captain Razorclaw of the Serpent's Kiss," he said, his voice echoing across the galaxy. "I have uncovered a conspiracy by the galaxy's wealthiest corporations and most influential civilizations to eliminate me and my crew. They hired the Obsidian Guard to lure us into a trap, but we turned the tables on them and emerged victorious." He went on to describe the Consortium's corrupt practices, their exploitation of weaker species, and their disregard for the well-being of the galaxy. "I am calling on all those who believe in justice and fairness to stand up and fight against the Consortium," he said. "Together, we can create a galaxy where everyone has the opportunity to thrive." The message was broadcast far and wide, reaching millions of beings across the galaxy. It sparked outrage and condemnation, turning public opinion against the Consortium. Part 12, The Consortium's Downfall. The revelation of the Consortium's treachery sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Protests erupted on countless worlds, demanding the arrest and prosecution of the Consortium leaders. The governments of several civilizations launched investigations into the Consortium's activities, uncovering a web of corruption, bribery, and illegal dealings. Lord Valerius, Madame Evangeline, and Grand Admiral Thrax were arrested and charged with conspiracy, attempted murder, and numerous other crimes. Their reputations were ruined, and their power was shattered. The Consortium, once the most powerful organization in the galaxy, crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. Its assets were seized, its members were disgraced, and its influence was eradicated. Part 13, A Beacon of Hope. Razorclaw and the Serpent's Kiss became symbols of hope for the oppressed and downtrodden. Their actions inspired others to stand up against injustice and fight for a better future. The frontier colonies and oppressed populations that had benefited from Razorclaw's generosity flourished, their economies strengthened and their spirits lifted. The galaxy was a better place because of Razorclaw and his crew. They had shown that even the most powerful organizations could be brought to their knees by those who dared to stand up against them. Part 14, The Final Confrontation. Though the Consortium was dismantled, the ripples of their actions continued to spread. Some splinter factions loyal to the old regime refused to accept defeat, and they plotted revenge against Razorclaw. One such faction was led by Valerius's son, Darius. Darius was even more ruthless and cunning than his father, and he was determined to restore his family's honor and reclaim their lost power. Darius gathered a group of like-minded individuals and formed a new organization, the Shadow Syndicate. The Shadow Syndicate operated in the shadows, engaging in acts of sabotage, assassination, and terrorism. Their ultimate goal was to destroy Razorclaw and everything he stood for. Razorclaw knew that the Shadow Syndicate posed a serious threat, but he refused to be intimidated. He and his crew continued their fight for justice, striking at the heart of the Syndicate's operations and disrupting their plans. The conflict between Razorclaw and the Shadow Syndicate escalated, leading to a final, climactic confrontation. Darius laid a trap for Razorclaw, luring him to a remote space station on the edge of the galaxy. Razorclaw knew it was a trap, but he couldn't resist the opportunity to confront Darius and put an end to the Shadow Syndicate's reign of terror. He and his crew set course for the space station, prepared for a final showdown. Part 15, The Final Battle. The Serpent's Kiss arrived at the space station and was immediately met with heavy fire. The Shadow Syndicate had fortified the station and deployed a fleet of warships to defend it. Razorclaw and his crew fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Serpent's Kiss sustained heavy damage, and several crew members were wounded. Just as it seemed that all hope was lost, Razorclaw launched a daring plan. He ordered Lyra to pilot the Serpent's Kiss on a suicide run towards the space station's main reactor. Lyra hesitated for a moment, knowing that the mission was likely to be a one-way trip. But she trusted Razorclaw's judgment, and she knew that it was the only way to defeat the Shadow Syndicate. "Hang on tight," she said to the crew. "This is going to be a bumpy ride." The Serpent's Kiss accelerated towards the space station, dodging enemy fire and weaving through the debris field. The ship slammed into the reactor, triggering a massive explosion. The space station was obliterated, and the Shadow Syndicate's fleet was destroyed. Darius and his followers were killed in the blast. The Serpent's Kiss was also destroyed, but the crew managed to escape in escape pods moments before the explosion. They floated in space, battered and bruised, but alive. Part 16, A New Dawn. The destruction of the Shadow Syndicate marked the end of an era. The galaxy was finally free from the grip of corruption and injustice. Razorclaw and his crew were hailed as heroes, their names etched into the annals of galactic history. They had sacrificed everything to fight for what was right, and they had succeeded. The galaxy entered a new era of peace and prosperity. The frontier colonies thrived, the oppressed populations were liberated, and the principles of justice and fairness were upheld. Razorclaw and his crew continued to travel the galaxy, helping those in need and inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. They were a symbol of hope for a better future, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and unwavering belief in what is right. Part 17, Epilogue. Years later, an old Draconis sat on a porch overlooking a sprawling farm planet. He looked up at the stars and smiled. He was at peace. All the sacrifices, the battles fought, were all worth it. The galaxy was safe.